Welcome to Lead to Succeed, a podcast where you hear first-hand leadership stories, tips and hacks to enhance your career and life. Lead to Succeed is brought to you by Zahi, Abdein and Osama Al-Mosa.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Lead to Succeed. This is our second podcast, and today we're gonna listen to the second half of David Altman's interview. I'm looking forward to it. How about you, Osama?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm also looking forward to it. Dave was very rich in his in sharing his insights, especially talking about his stories.
Absolutely. So, Osama, since last time we have talked, what's on your mind? What's new?
Resilience came in mind many times. And if we look at 2020 and how much leaders have been required to develop their resilience during turbulent times. And here I share with you 4 ways how to enhance the resilience level. The first one is about reframing how you think of that incident or that experience that you went through. Coping thoughts will also enhance how to look at the situation from a different perspective. Then sleep, and even in executive education these days, much of studies around sleeping and how much it enhances the cognitive and psychological abilities of leaders. Then there are moments where it's highly impossible to do adequate sleep and have enough of it. Then try and find alternative ways where you just relax, meditate, do something that you like in order to, it's like you recharge your battery. And then finally, the 4th strategy, it's about how to explore the situation using the power of positivity. What's positive in that situation? How can you look also into it with that frame of mind being positive? All the best, and this is all I have, and it's to you, Zahi.
Absolutely. Yes, resilience, and David, in our first half of the interview, you mentioned resilience about burning bright. And we know that resilience is basically, the ability to bounce back from hardships, from hard time, and so forth. Absolutely, sleep is part of our resilience, whether it's mental or physical. Also, we should build our own emotional resilience, our social resilience, and so forth. So yes, resilience is a really important topic, especially these times, and 2020. And from what it looks like, that we need to be also resilient in 2021 as well. So for me, I'll tell you what's in my mind. I was impressed by a Disney Pixar movie, okay, that I watched with the family. The movie's called Soul. I don't know if you watched it. I'm not going to ruin it for you, Osama, but I really advise that you should go and watch and watch it with the family. It talks about
keep it a surprise for me.
So what now?
Don't burn the card. Keep it a surprise.
No.
For me.
I'm gonna give it high level. Okay, I love it because it talks about a few topics and that we really emphasize on in our leadership development, in talent development, and in our coaching practices. Which is one of the things is having a purpose. Okay, living with a purpose. Living life at its fullest. And the third one is diversity, accepting diversity and respecting diversity. So this movie is really a highlight of since the last time we've talked, and I really recommend it for you and for your kids. And it's amazing. It's really good to start putting that seed into the kids' brain and start thinking about those things.
Interesting.
So next, we have the second half of David's interview. Let's go there and listen to it and see how.
Go for it.
I see that David is making it very appealing for us with those very rich insights to ask deeper. So I realized Zahi as well. He's very keen to ask you questions. Zahi, go ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, we know, David, today you are the Chief Operating Officer at CCL. We also know that you worked in the Middle East, covering the Middle East and different parts of the world, EMEA and as I said, different parts of the world. And it's really, really nice hearing that perspective about the Middle East from you, especially that you left covering that region some time ago. Going back to the topic of leadership, I would like to ask you about what's trending in when we talk about leadership. How do you foresee some of the changes about the leadership development moving forward, especially after 2020, a different and unexpected year that we had?
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, some things remain the same, and I mentioned a few of those, which is no one is saying leadership development isn't important anymore. Now, people have cut back their spending in 2020 because of the obvious reasons, but what we're beginning to see now is pent-up demand. It's like we have all these people, and even if we had a reduction in force, we have all these people, and we're dependent upon our employees and our contractors to help lead us to the future. They need investment in themselves. So that remains. Now, there are some changes that I think are important. In the U.S., but it extends throughout the world, there's more attention to equity, diversity, and inclusion. And that plays out in different ways across the globe, but it's a sort of a call to action that we need to embrace diversity of all kinds, that we need to figure out ways to include the vast tapestry of human talent that is in our organizations and in our communities. And we need to embrace equity, where we give people opportunities commensurate with their interests and abilities to bring all that they have to our organization. So there's a lot more attention on EDI, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Second, and I've mentioned it, so I won't spend too much time, is scalability. How do we reach more people? And that kind of connects to equity. Obviously, with the pandemic, leadership development had to develop new ways of doing virtual delivery. And we think that will forever change how we interact with our clients. We're never going to go away from virtual. There's going to be a hybrid model. And there are certain advantages to virtual. Like, for example, in most cultures, it would be totally inappropriate to stare at people for hours at end. But like us here today, you've been staring at me for nearly 30 minutes, and I've been staring at you, and it's been perfectly fine. So we can pick up subtle or not so subtle signals from that. So I think what we're going to see is in the future, when people can start traveling again, we're going to see hybrid models where we're going to use virtual for some aspects of what we do, perhaps lengthen the journey of leadership development through virtual means, lower costs, easier to reach more people, and add in face-to-face. I think a couple more factors that come to mind. And I talked about burn bright. So well-being, resiliency, all that. Those are really big topics. And while they may die down a little bit once the world is vaccinated, I think it's always going to be a topic now because we're going to face other challenges in the world. This ed tech, education technology, there's an explosion. All these startup companies around the world are trying to figure out how to leverage new technology platforms to do education. And this is significant and it's disruptive. And older organizations like CCL and many business schools are being disrupted by ed tech, and they're going to continue to be disrupted. And then finally, and it's tied to the ed tech, it's like we're using different types of technology, different platforms, figuring out how to bring deeply meaningful experiences that we've honed over the years with face-to-face and bring them into the world of online. And it's not easy. It requires some new content, new methods, artistry and science. But that, I think, is a trend that's happening across the globe.
Nice.
Thank you. I just lost track with the new technology. Every time there is a new one, it's like the mushroom. They just pop up. You see Canvas, online Canvas, and how to do sticky notes online, virtual sticky notes. And it's very interesting. And while we're talking about this topic, leadership development and how to approach it, David, I'm someone who looks into best practices. However, I more into the customized approach. So best practices are great to be looked at. However, I, as a learning and development professional or someone who deals with leadership development, I would think of how can I customize best practices into the situation of my clients or my organization. And here, my question is around, what do you recommend? If the organization is high-end, they are close, they are more into technology, or if the organization used to be far and now they want to cope up with the changes, how both cases are supposed to approach leadership development?
Yeah. Okay, so there are known and unknown challenges that we face in the future. So one thing that is important is to not try to predict everything. It's to embrace uncertainty. And, at the end of the day, we're still talking about people. So having deep knowledge of what makes people tick, what makes human beings tick individually and collectively, that's not going to go away. So some of it is an attitude, and maybe this is a little bit of a recommendation as well as a reflection. But there's a professor at Stanford, Carol Dweck, who wrote a great book and has done a line of research on mindsets. So highly recommended to your viewers, listeners. So one of the things she said is that it's important to have a growth mindset. And what she's observed is that it's not always the people who start out the smartest, that is, have the best grades, score the highest on the tests, all that end up being the smartest or the most effective. And, from my experience, because I've worked at some great institutions, and including CCL, and I've been around a lot of smart people, any day I will take somebody of average or above average intelligence who has high work ethic, a drive to succeed, that embraces failure as fuel for learning more and getting better. They have grit, they have persistence. I'll take that kind of person than someone with exceptional IQ or, number one in their class who has not ever experienced challenge or failure. And so part of what we need to do is to, as we think about the future, is to understand that the stuff we can't predict, we are going to be challenged, we are going to have failure. And when that happens, let's learn from it. So, recently at CCL, we've won new business, but sometimes we come in second place on RFPs, and we did on one recently. And last week we spent a couple hours just talking about the feedback that we received. What else could we have done? And it was really motivating to people because now we know how to get better in the future versus saying, we failed, we're not as good as we thought we were. And, so that's sort of what we need. And as I said before, leadership development is going to remain a priority. So, in light of that, there's going to be all kinds of changes, but it's a priority. So we need to be very attentive to and deeply understanding of what organizations need, and not just assume that they know. I mean, it's drilling down. It's what we call the discovery process. Keep peeling the layers of the onion So you really get to the core of what people need and then measure it. So there's a lot of attention, and you know this, with, well, we're going to spend this money and spend this time. What are we going to get for it? Like, what's the return on our time and so that has always been around, but in an era where there's more constrained resources, that's a topic that comes up quite a bit these days.
Nice.
I see you smiling. Go ahead.
Yes, I mean, I love the book mindset. Having a growth mindset is something versus fixed mindset is a great topic and great discussion to have. And yes, we also recommend to our viewers and listeners to read that book. It's an amazing book. It's actually we teach it as part of some of the CCL programs as well. So I love that you've mentioned that book, and that's I'm all with you. When you said that when you look at to hire somebody with grit, somebody with growth mindset versus somebody with high IQ, but that has more of a fixed mindset. So absolutely great point of view. So as leadership and development professionals, what should we expect? What are your tips? What should we look forward to in the coming months and years?
All right. Well, you've just reinforced my first tip, which is every day, tell yourself to have a growth mindset. And I do that because sometimes I get into a fixed mentality and I try to just self-talk and say, no, this is an opportunity to learn and grow. Figure out what you're going to learn from that. So that's number one. Number two, and I'll cite another person you guys know, Adam Grant at University of Pennsylvania, who wrote Give and Take and a number of other books. He said that the most meaningful way to succeed is to help other people succeed. And, you may have heard of this concept called paying it forward. That is giving help, assistance, whatever, to other people without the expectation that you get anything in return. And we're trying to do this at CCL. We have this initiative called One CCL. We are one organization. And part of being one organization, regardless of where you live and what you do, is that when someone asks you for help, you always say yes. You figure out a way to help because you're part of the same organization, the same community, the same tribe. And likewise, it's important for everyone, to ask for help because the assets in organizations are often left on the table unused. So the most meaningful way to succeed is to help others succeed. Adam Grant agree. And the most meaningful way for you to succeed is to ask others for help. And if you can create a culture in your organization of everybody's helping others and asking for help, amazing things can be accomplished. And that's the mentality that we're trying to drive. Another recommendation I would have, and this comes from the science of behavior change, is, everyone's talking about transformation. We want transformation. Okay, great. Well, how does that happen for you as an individual and as a collective? Well, it doesn't there's not this lightning bolt or this inspiration one day where you come up with the idea. Okay, on occasion that'll happen, but typically it's through small wins, incremental changes, tiny habits. It's like one person said, it's the continuous application of small advantage. So it's small advantages, doing small things, and everybody's doing small things. And one day they've accumulated into something really big. So, for example, if you were trying to climb up a big mountain, Mount Everest, you want to be on the top and look at the view, but how do you do it? Well, it's one step at a time. And the training to take one step at high altitude requires a lot of time. So break down big goals into smaller goals. And the large scale problems that organizations are facing are going to be successfully addressed if they're broken down into a lot of smaller ones with concrete achievable goals.
Nice.
Let me just mention one more and then I'll stop. The other thing, and we teach this at CCL, you know all about it, is when we ask leaders, like, think back to your career and what was it? What were those experiences that you had that made you the leader that you are today? And what did you learn from those experiences? And this is where we get to the 70-20-10 principle. And what leaders say is, yeah, I learned from reading books and going to workshops, listening to podcasts. That's 10%. I learned from other people. I watched other people who were effective and not, and I learned from them. That's 20%. And 70%, give or take, is what I did. It was the lessons of experience. And in particular, it was turbulence. It was failure. It was stretch assignments. It was an expat assignment. It was driving cultural change. It was tough stuff. It was the tough stuff that at the end of the day, again, going back to the connecting the dots, when I look back, it's the tough stuff where I really learned a lot. So the lesson from that is, especially for young people, is seek out the tough things. Seek out stretch assignments. Put your hand up to volunteer for something that you're not sure you can do. Because when you look back on it, it's going to be those experiences, whether you succeeded or failed, that are going to be most important to your development as a human and as a leader.
Nice. Thank you. Actually, your first point reminded me was something my grandfather used to say. I'll say it in Arabic, then I'll translate it to English. He used to say, "اعمل خير وارمي في البحر." He used to say, which means that do good, pay it forward, and throw it into the sea, because he just explains, like, the waves will bring back to you. It says God will repay you back. Karma will repay you back, and that's exactly what that meant. And yes, thank you for
sharing that.
So, Sama.
Yeah, David, we're very mindful about your time, and in the cyberspace, there is no guarantee of confidentiality. So we're not sure how our podcast is going to reach your wife, but we would really wish to know something personal related to your leadership journey yourself. So what leadership competencies in your story to succeed so far? What competencies helped you? And how do you look into the future? What competencies will help you to navigate your future successfully?
Yeah. So not to belabor, but the growth mindset has been important. And I didn't always have large amounts of that, but I feel like I do now. So just striving to learn. And when something doesn't go right, which for me happens every week, literally, sometimes every day, don't label it as a failure of who I am at my core, but rather as something that didn't work out. And if I learn from it, then I'll be more effective in the future. So that's part of my story. A second part of my story is a recognition that, I have human agency. That is, I have control over some of what I do, but it's not all about me. And this goes back to the socio-ecological model. It's the people around me. It's my family, my friends, my colleagues, strangers that I meet flying around the globe. And it's the context in which I've worked that have made a difference. It wasn't all me. And now I did things to put myself into situations that perhaps increased the odds that I was going to learn and grow. But sometimes it's luck, sometimes it's karma, and certainly it's extending yourself and having this idea in your head that get out of your comfort zone. Because in your comfort zone, you know what you're doing. And that comfort zone is going to be threatened by changes in society and changes in organizations. So when you start feeling comfortable, that's a warning sign that you're stagnating, you're leveling out. And so I've tried to adopt that. And I've come to understand recently, literally in the last couple months, that I've had a lot of privilege. So I worked hard. I didn't come from a family that was wealthy, but I had privilege of all kinds. And that privilege allowed me to move around and get certain jobs that perhaps other people didn't have. So I try not to take for granted where I've come from and where I am now, and to always have gratitude. And if anything, to weight lower my human agency, my own assets, and instead look to others and look to the context and be grateful that, I found myself in situations and with other people that allowed me to prosper as a human being. And that then compels me to be a giver and to do whatever I can to help other people succeed, because I was given certain privileges that others don't have. And so every day I try to give back. And I get a lot from that. And hopefully people with whom I interact with do as well.
Interesting, very inspiring. Though it means I should not retire and I should remain under discomfort, but it's really very inspiring, David. We appreciate it. Thanks for sharing it.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I truly am honored to be part of your new initiative.
David, speaking of being grateful, we're really grateful for you being here in our first episode. And if anybody wants to reach out to you, how can they get connected?
Yeah, they can connect to me through LinkedIn, or they can send me an email at Altman, Altman, David, @ccl.org.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, David.
Thank you. I wish you much prosperity and good health and success in all that you're doing.
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks a lot.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
So, Osama, here we are.
Goody. It was very nice. David again brought up many good insights. My take home from the second episode, Zahi, is around learning agility. Yeah? There is never enough to keep learning. And what I want to emphasize around here, learning agility is not just about learning something new, which might be sometimes on majority of the cases. But what is important here to realize is the unlearning. There are certain situations where we need to unlearn a skill that helped us in the past might not help us in the future, or contrarily, it might be anti-skill one day for us. So here comes the power of unlearning what used to be okay, what used to be a reason for success. And this is really powerful. It's just like a treasure.
Absolutely.
That's it. Zahi, how about you?
For me, I loved what he said about the best way to hire. He talked on several and answering a couple of questions. He talked about growth mindset, and he's talking about we hire for growth mindset, hire for the potential of that person, hire for emotional intelligence, EQ. And IQ is important, but more importantly is the emotional intelligence. So that's the highlight. I mean, I love those things: mindset, growth mindset versus fixed mindset, and that's what we should look for when we hire our talents.
Very good. Thanks a lot. Looking forward to our coming podcast.
Absolutely. Next week, or in a couple of weeks, we're going to have our first Arabic episode. So I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, yes. That's interesting too.
Yes. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to us and to our interview with Mr. David Altman, the CEO of the Center for Creative Leadership. And until next time, have a great day.
Bye. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Lead to Succeed podcast. If you like this podcast, please remember to give us 5-star rating, share it with your family and friends, and follow us on social media. We also welcome you to send us your ideas, suggestions, and any question. Our contact details will be found on the podcast description. This is Osama and Zahi, and until next time, make sure to remain authentic, keep learning, and to enjoy life.